So I'm just gonna do a spontaneous quick note. I'm doing some case reviews. Some of the cases I have. I have Rao versus BP Production North America. I have Abraham versus Singh. I have. You probably know what this one is. Boyle versus the United States. This is actually I gotta go to that page. I forgot how they simplified this one. Oh yeah, Cedric Kushner Promotions versus King. This is the only one I've written notes on so far. And the United States versus Novia Terquete Jr. So, while I found, for Don King's sake, not that cares because he lost, I found some very interesting properties to the opinion delivered by the court as represented by Justice Breyer, in which there were no dissenting justices. However, I haven't put any notes on this one because, oh my gosh, I'm going to need woohoo Terquete Jr. Wow. I just want to say in Terquete Jr., there was one justice that was in dissent, meaning that the justice agreed with the original um, verdict or whatever you want to call it, of the Court of Appeals. Court of Appeals, okay, Justice Stewart agrees with the reasoning and conclusion of the Court of Appeals as to the meaning of the term enterprise in this statute. So, this is one thing. Out of all of these, though, and the one with Don King is remarkable, I say primarily because it's another. I don't like Don King. I think he's a piece of shit, to be honest with you. But despite that fact, it's another Black Wall Street. It's just that it's better. I think what American society has found with the Black Wall Street and the, I think it's the Missouri or St. Louis or something like that, race riots that were not premised on any kind of racial tension, that was consistent or like a Jim Crow kind of scenario, but was actually premised on a sheer disgust and probably in the home with amongst children vitriolic hatred for a, what would be, I mean, it doesn't have to be, but it's just a reflection of the way American society is, black enterprise. And most Americans know as much about Black Wall Street as they do about John Brown, and there's very significant reasons for that. Um, and that goes for Black Americans too. I guarantee you that 85% of Black Americans have never heard of John Brown, and I guarantee you 90%, maybe even 95% of white Americans, which is 272 million out of the 319 million in the 2010 census, don't know. So I'm saying 260 million white Americans don't know about John Brown, and of the black population, which they claim to be something like 40 million, but mathematically isn't possible, um, as the census shows. Whatever that portion is, they claim it's 16% of the total population, while 272 million census self-proclaimed white Caucasian, whatever you want to call it, Americans equate to 2/3, if I'm not mistaken, or is it 3/4? I think it's 3/4, or whichever one, three quarters or 2/3 272 out of 319. You do them. I'm not good with math. But whatever the equation is, what's left over is Hispanics, which I don't know how they divvy that up. I think they just clump them all together because it's America. Asians, Arabs, which they might actually come together too. Now that I'm thinking about it, um, and smaller populations like Indigenous, Polynesian, Eskimo, Inuit, Native American, and Black. And out of from the gap of 272 million, again from the 2010 census, that are self-prescribed white or identified as white, that leaves up to 319 million, which is the max total general population, to include everything non-white. And somehow, uh, the segment of that remnant that is black is publicly equated to be 16% of the total national population. Which again, I suck at math, but you know, so does everybody else. So, anyways, the Don King, in one sense, even though he's a piece of shit, he became a piece of shit by mimicking. He's a parrot essentially. Um, he thought by becoming talking, he talked black, but by becoming essentially a white, like the NAACP. There was a dispute between, I'm stretching here, Martin Luther King and NAACP, because in Martin Luther King's own autobiography, the NAACP was one of the most ferocious forces trying to dismantle the movement that he was doing, that wasn't just for equality or tolerance, because those are false notions, misnomers, that actually perpetuate discrimination and stupidity, because in the sense that there's a human family or human race, tolerance and equality as a reverse psychology, it entrenches and perpetuates the delusion that you look at the other person in that sense. But anyways, and the NAACP's notion is that their idea of fairness was tolerance, and their idea of tolerance is basically, hey, you let us have our Black Wall Streets and our Don Kings and our elitist structured society that reflects the greater white society's structure, and we'll call it even. We don't all need to be treated equal. We just need to have a few of us with equal access to the same structural uh, construct as the white society. And if you read Huey P. Long, the senator that was assassinated, he's very clear on the structure of white society. He's probably one of the best on that. But anyways, so the Don King one is fabulous, but this Turquette one is very profound in that the aggressive and abrasive and somewhat at the same time, it's a wordplay. It's such a fabulous wordplay in the justice that White delivered the opinion to the court, and the summation of the justices that Justice White is delivering the opinion for is that the court that made the decision that they're reviewing is in effect, in their own words, in every sentiment, in the plain language that they speak, in plain English, in the essence of the sentiment, in all these legal mantra, where the foundation is, there is the everything, some crap, is that the court itself was essentially an agent or a tool of the case in point. And I'm not going to get into the case in point because I'm studying it for a reason. But the phenomenal thing is, it doesn't take a genius to see that the the Supreme Court, who's making this ruling, is openly but yet passively, like passive aggressively, indicting the court that made the decision that they're reviewing as a criminal court, as an agent of a criminal enterprise engaged in exactly the same crimes and in collusion towards the same purpose as the very defendant or appellant, or I don't know what the heck they call him, was this Novia Turquette Jr. So, but at the same time, because of the structure of this goes to show you the role of the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court, while blatantly being the source of the indictment against the lower court, or lesser court, I don't know which one they call it, has portrays or exemplifies, or so I don't know what it is, but doesn't do diddly jack squat crap. And in the entirety of its opinion, it is very clear on the intention of the United States government on how to engage such apparatuses, but which, by not doing it, um, by negating or I don't know which one, by not being an agent of the United States government, which it clearly expresses has a very specific intention towards such operations and enterprises and groups and whatnot. Um, it 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 doesn't. It remains silent in that it doesn't do diddly jack squat, and this is where the Don King comes in, because Don King, probably in the piece of shit that he is, and the egocentric, they still didn't see that, didn't think to contest to the Supreme Court itself, the integrity of the Supreme Court. And if you wanted to do that, the Turquette would be the most clear, probable by sure. And the catch is, I want to say that my take on this is that if it wasn't for this Justice Stewart, who dissented, basically agreeing, then him in his own right is the only thing that it's like a scam. It's part of the scam. Him dissenting and attempting to validate the lower court's original verdict, which is obviously 100% radically corrupt and influenced by the purposes of the defendant himself and the rest of his organization and enterprise, thus making that court an agent of that. Him doing that either makes it seem like, oh, you know what? See, anybody can come to that opinion. Look, you even had a justice do that. And he was basically the triage in order to save the integrity, the appearance of integrity within the court, to say, because but in one sense too, it's either he incriminates himself, or the court or the Supreme Court incriminates its operation in totality. But but the court definitely, apart from this piece of shit, Justice Stewart, sorry, John Stewart, they definitely incriminate the lower court as an agent, member, or entity of a criminal organization. So that's just my little get back into videos little thing here.